I'm Kelly Souders. I'll be your host today. Today, I have some very distinguished guests with me. I have Mr. Will Carroll with the PTL KSN, Brent Miller with Ships Force Resources, Bob Breon, Work Integration, and Captain Markowitz, our chairman for CT1. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Well, before we get into it, hopefully everyone got in okay today. A little crazy out there, huh? You didn't know this event was so popular. We had Secret Service watching us. So we got you all in here. I just wanted to remind you, if you haven't been here before, that if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and write them on the index cards on your table, or if you can get into the Whova app, go ahead and put it under the agenda under this session, put your comments, and we'll be glad to answer those questions for you. And I'm going to jump right in. Since I have 4 of them up here, I want to make sure I get as much time as possible. I am going to start with you, Will.
Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning. So great to have you here. So I know your KSN focuses a lot on leadership. Can you explain a little bit on who are the members of your KSN and what are some of their roles in KSN1?
So the core membership of the Project Team Leadership Knowledge Sharing Network, PTL KSN, are the project superintendents and the deputy project superintendents from the public yards, and your project supervisors, program directors, construction directors from the private yards. So the core membership, one of the key functions we play are line leaders. They are all assigned line leaders with a specific one of the other KSNs, and they will be that conduit to enhance communication and ensure that the project team has an influence and interaction communications with KSN1, all the KSNs.
Great, great. Yeah, yesterday, or was it the day before, we talked about the 3 leadership group. Can't remember which day it was now. But the line leaders, which are on PTL, are an essential piece of that 3 leadership group. So those are your deputy and your project superintendents. They're very essential for our KSNs. So we have Chris Hughes and Matt Mercy over there who lead that as well. So I just wanted to recognize them. If you have any questions, make sure you really go ask those 2. I'm sure they could give you any good answers. Thank you, Will. So Brent, we're going to jump over to you. Change it up a little bit, talk about Ships Force Resources. So I think Ships Force Resources actually has had a lot of great successes this year, and I've heard a lot about them, and I really want you to chat with the audience about some of your initiatives.
Brent Miller, Ships Force Resources. Hey, thanks for the Ships Force over here for showing up. It's great to have you guys here and see what goes on at a winter meeting. But the initiatives, we had 5 of them that I believe we completed or moved the needle on last year. So we had a very good year last year. A couple of those, we had Ships Force participation. We had the metrics to show that we had increased participation on phone calls, on the face-to-faces, and just on the KSN1 campus Ships Force resource page itself. I can see those numbers behind the scenes, and they're going up drastically. We tried last year with combat systems to bring them in a little bit because we really saw a need there. And I had them participating a little bit here and there. We weren't exactly hitting the mark, so out of the initiative last year, we got the combat systems subgroup started, which I'm passing over to Bob, and he's going to talk about that a little bit more. Also, the carrier maintenance course. We worked on training a little bit. Cliff Anderson, Propulsion Plant Matters. We worked on the carrier maintenance course and updated that. It was severely outdated. So that has been updated and sent out to the fleet and sent out to the work integration managers. And then the last thing really from the last face-to-face, the Ships Force Zone Manager Qual Card. That was done in a phased training approach and a new format. I'll call that complete. We sent it out to use, but with more Ships Force training for zone managers coming up, that card will be a working document for a little bit, but we have one out there that's better than it was. And so I felt we did pretty good last year.
That's awesome. Thank you. And remember, his up close and personal today, this afternoon. So if you have any questions about Ships Force Resources, please ask Brent. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to talk to you about it.
Looking for questions and problems.
Yes. And Will is also, I wasn't excluding you earlier. I just given him the quick plug. Didn't want you to feel loved. So I want to ask the next question to Captain Markowitz. we have this new subgroup that we just mentioned for combat systems, really to give a space for our combat systems and the project side and on the ship's force side to collaborate and work on some things. So can you share a little bit about the vision for that team? It's kind of like musical mics up here. I'm not sure what's going on. Fun.
All right, this one works, I think. Can you hear me back there? All right, good. All right, vision for the combat systems subgroup. So, by a show of hands, who thinks at the end of availability, combat systems testing is going flawlessly and there's no room for improvement? Yes, the ESC member for the work integration group. That's awesome, Dan. Thanks. So, one hand. Okay, so the vision of the subgroup is, hey, some end games with the combat systems light off, hey, sometimes it goes really well. And sometimes maybe there's some room for improvement. So to kind of level out the playing field, so to speak, let's work on that. So there's one of our hot washes, and we're discussing how, there's a lot of room for improvement on this one. So where to focus attention? Well, we have a template for testing and building the combat systems test plan. So what's really the issue? So you go upstream of that and you say, okay, are we ready for that light off? Do we have all the support systems ready for that radar or that piece of gear, and do we know it? So I don't think we know it as well as we could. So the group is focused on test readiness, and they're looking at a product where they could put an input into the desk guide. So I have the ability as the M43 to task my force combat systems officer, Commander Terrell Burnett, and I've asked him to energize his CSOs. I want to recognize Rob Kurtz. Rob, stand up. Where are you, Rob? Rob's all the way in the back there. Rob is stand-in this week. Terrell is SIQ, but Rob's here to answer any of your questions, and we'll probably have plenty more opportunities to engage with him and Bob and Brent on this one. So, kind of my vision is a desk guide input for test readiness on combat systems.
Right, and Rob will be also in the up close and personal with the team. So Bob, don't want you to get off the hook. And by the way, I did notice you guys color coordinated just now. That's very nice. That's not bad at all. Clearly. So we were just talking about combat systems, and combat systems is a new subgroup that actually is falling under work integration, but Ship's Force Resources is going to be part of that since they team up on a lot of things. Bob, can you talk a little bit about what you see as some of the big initiatives and a little bit about your upcoming face-to-face for combat systems?
Sure, I can do that. This morning. I tend to be very straightforward and direct, so if something pops out, I apologize in advance.
You can throw something at him. It's okay.
I think we'll swap again.
Oh, my goodness.
What are you guys
and
doing?
Mine's turned on. They must have changed channel on us. There we go. So, again, I apologize in advance if I offend somebody with my language today. And I don't mean to be very negative, but I have been called Eeyore this week, and I've also been called the Grinch, both accurate descriptions. So with that said, going forward, okay, so right off the bat, the first thing we've got coming up to us is this face-to-face next month down in San Diego. We're going to get combat systems together. As the captain said, we had a couple of hot washes where it was brought to our... All right, I'm on channel 4 now. Man, I'm killing these things today, eh? So next month we're going to meet because Ship's Force had said at a couple hot washes they weren't feeling the love. We're getting down to the combat systems light off, and it was, oh my goodness, I'm jumping through hoops to satisfy everybody. Do we have the electricity? Do we have the air? Do we have chill water, pot water, fire main, whatever it is? Are we ready to go? So we're scrambling at the end to get into the combat systems, light off the combat systems testing of all the new stuff. So with the complexity and the quantity of modernization items that we've been doing in the combat systems area, and it's just grown every year, every availability, we decided to form this combat systems working group. We'll scratch the itch, so to speak, to get Ships Force involved during the planning phase all the way through execution, the 7th stage where we do the detect to engage at sea during sea trials. They'll be involved the whole way along. So start next month, the week of the 23rd of March, not May, the sign's a lie, disinformation back there on the right. It is actually March, not May. Somebody that wants to go has already approached me about that yesterday and pointed that out to me. So if you were thinking you might want to go, get a hold of Ken Norwood, raise your hand, or myself, and we can get you the welcome letter so that you can register and do what you need to do to participate. The plan is that we're going to go through the admin first. We'll get the charter written. We'll get the process management plan, the process maps, and the core membership defined. That's the admin portion. The beauty of that is Commander Burnett has already taken those under his control. He's drafted them. He's socialized them a little bit. So that should be, I don't want to say rubber stamp, but it should go very easily. I did this about 1.5 years ago for work integration. And if when you're starting from the ground up, so to speak, with process maps and PMPs, it could take some time. Like for us, it took 3 days sitting down together. We spent a lot of time on that, deliberately doing it, and good quality. This time he's got a head start on it, so we should be able to get through the admin. From that, we're going to go on into the end game. As the captain said, that's the real challenge for us, is the end game for combat systems. We have a pretty well-defined end game for the propulsion spaces and the propulsion plants. We're going to just carry that topside now into the combat systems arena. And the nice part about that is the propulsion plants have to support us. We have to support them. As I said earlier, the complexity is now crossing boundaries. It's no longer a stovepipe of combat systems, a stovepipe of the propulsion plants. You guys just give us power, we'll be happy. No, they're too much interrelated now with all the electronics and the digital world that we live in. So that right now is the biggest thing we have coming up on our agenda. The next one downstream will be in May on the Lincoln project, where we're going to try a modernization something. If we have time, we'll get to that, and I'll talk about it a little bit later.
Thank you, thank you. So I really want to encourage our project teams from our shipyards and our ships force to go if they can. And if you can't, at least get connected to the subgroup so you can call in on the phone calls. And it's really a space for you guys to work together as a team. We really haven't had that space before. And it's definitely something that's come up at probably every hot wash I've been to in quite a while. So thank you. All right, so for the three of you, I'm going to start with you, Brent. I feel like you need a little attention right there. So my question is, and I asked it to everyone else the last couple of days, how does your KSN come along a project team during an availability?
All right, for the Ships Force resources, really we concentrate on Ships Force for the most part. It's really about putting them into the best opportunity to succeed. Just with natural turnover, Ships Force, they're coming and going every 3-4 years. They may or may not have ever seen a CNO avail. So the Ships Force Resource Manual, that was made for the processes of going through a CNO avail. No matter what type of avail it is, it's there, it's a guide. It has the must-dos in them. The must-dos, if you go track down the must-dos, you have a high success rate, actually, if you just follow them. That book was made on blood, sweat, and tears, so we just need to use that. We do a lineup with the project a little bit with the A-12 assessment. A-12 peer assist, where Cliff and I go out and talk to the ship. And that's really how we line up with them.
Right. You know, one thing, I heard it yesterday and the day before and today, our KSNs talking about other KSNs they're working with. So I really like that. I think that's a really great thing. And it's good for the people in the KSN to kind of know those cross connects. So you know how to work it. So we can get things moving quicker so we know who to go to in the community. All right, Will, same question for you.
Thank you, Kelly. So with the project team leadership KSN to promote and foster the project-centric knowledge sharing. So we do that with the line leaders communicating with the KSNs, but at the project level, supporting the knowledge manager on the project and ensuring that the team participates in the retrospects. You have your focal points are engaged. using the proven practice replication for helping your team and providing the great things that you do to the other teams in the community. The PTL is essential that they ensure that everyone is participating so we get the maximum value out of our Care Team 1 KSNs.
Great, thank you. All right, Bob, back to you. How do you guys come alongside a project?
Well, I look at it that we're pretty fortunate in that Brent over here and then Cliff Anderson on the PPM, Propulsion Plant Matters, the three of us are about joined at the hip as you can get, because we're the ones that deal most directly with the ship's force personnel and the actual project team as it executes. Others kind of come in, visit, and they're gone. We're with them from A-12 on practically. Well, as a practical matter, we are there from A-12 on. One of the things that we've done recently from work integration is we now send the work integration manager out with Brent and Cliff when they go out for that A-12 peer assist or peer visit. And the WIM gets to go out and meet the ship's training officer and the reactor training assistant and goes over with them the training that they can expect to receive over the course of the next 12 months as we prepare to go into execution. So we start there, introduce them, here's what the support is we need from you. We can get the direct feedback starting at that A-12 then, what they need from us or expect from us, so that we can then work through all the conflicts that may arise due to schedule, last minute perturbations on that. So like I say, from A-12 on, we are engaged. And then as part of that, we help give them the backup along the way to use the various manuals. We have the, for me, it's the IPT for ACM, the Integrated Project Teams for Aircraft Carrier Maintenance. We use that as our Bible. Brent has his Ship's Force Resource Manual. The two of them are applicable to everybody, really. So we give them that forceful watch team backup that, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Or if we're not seeing it, we'll contact them. Do you need some help with this? Can we help you with that? What is it that we can do for you? And then what is it that you can do for us? It's that knowledge sharing and knowledge exchange between the groups that will ensure that we have the best possible chance of success when we do actually get to the execution portion of this. Okay, part of that is we also go through their work package with them and follow that through, as opposed to just, here's my work, put it into AIM. You know, we like to get it when we stand up the APT. A great training opportunity for them is to enter their PMS into AIM. They can learn AIM. They start getting a feel for what we expect or what we need from them, being Ship's Force, them being Ship's Force. But we start helping to develop that Ship's Force work package. We can then give the feedback. Seems like you're a little light here or there. What about your distributive systems? We heard a little bit about that yesterday. You know, distributive systems, fire main, pot water, air, ventilation, they tend to drive us crazy at the end of the availability and throughout the availability. So working through all that to get it into the project's full work package to get into the master integrated schedule. So we work with them from there on out till we get into the execution phase. Then we're working with Ship's Force mainly and the contractors. Get your work scheduled appropriately. We work with them to get things deconflicted. We're the pros from Dover, supposedly, right? Everybody assumes the shipyard pros from Dover, that we're watching AIM, we're watching PSS so that we can give that feedback to the project team. Here's where we think you may have a problem or something we're seeing. It's just backup. That's really what we do, but that's how we come alongside. We insert ourselves at A-12 and don't leave until CA00.
So you're stuck with Bob, is what he's saying, from A-12 on. They're so lucky. Can you tell them what APT stands for? They might not know.
Advanced Planning Team.
Thank you. Just make sure everyone is.
And no, it's not a boondoggle. I'll put that plug in right now from work integration. They actually do work when they come back to us. Ship's Force comes back, stands up the advanced planning team, and starts creating jobs in AIM, starting with Ship's Force. And it just, we start with that so that they can learn the systems because they're an integral part of the team for us to get our work done. So it's not a boondoggle. They really do work.
Thank you. All right. Captain Markowitz, I got a hard one for you as the chairman. So I really want our community to kind of hear, what do you think are some of the challenges our KSNs are facing in regards to knowledge flow today?
Thanks. Thanks, Kelly. So it gets to the, what for knowledge flow, how do you get to the ask, improve, and share that we talk about? So I don't think it'll come as a surprise to most, but what I think the most daunting challenge is building trust, okay? I think building trust is one of the biggest challenges we have. And I think we're good at talking to each other. KSNs are good to connect people, and there's lots of conversations that are happening between the KSNs. There's lots of conversations that I know are happening here this week. But how do you get to that trust factor where you're getting to the share portion, right? You're asking, you're talking, you're working on things to improve it. But how do you get to that, point where the Puget team is providing something to Norfolk or to something at HII where they trust enough at HII or Norfolk to receive that pass and build on it and actually incorporate that process in their shipyard. And we started off right off the bat with Admiral Caldwell when he started asking us for our opinion, and he charged us right away with, hey, we got to be able to trust ourselves in this room to share, okay, and provide an opinion. Admiral Moore talked about it, where he talked about, hey, you need to take a little bit of risk and trust that someone is giving you a good process or an item for improvement, and take that risk to incorporate it in your processes. So don't fire the person who took the risk and it didn't work out well, but trust enough that, hey, what I'm getting from FDNF, from all the way out in Japan, is going to work all the way in Newport News, and try to incorporate that in your yard. And I think it comes down to trust. And events like this help break down those barriers. I know lots of conversation have been happening this week, all the sidebars and all the, say, adult beverages that we've had in the evenings, I think help break down those barriers and improve our trust.
Thank you. I love that. And it kind of complements what Paul and I talked about on day one, where we said Carrier Team 1 was built on that key foundation of trust. And that was the one thing that we needed to make sure that everything else is built on, regardless of funding, techniques, leadership, cool databases, or what have you. That's great. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to ask each process master to briefly, let's use that word sometimes, talk briefly. I'll go with you, Bob, first. Dangerous. I'm just kidding. He's done so well. Talk about your top favorite initiative going forward 2020. Or your second top, because you already talked about combat systems, I know.
Okay, yes. Combat systems is number one, obviously. Been working on that for a while. But right down the road from that is that modernization summit that we're talking about. As I said earlier, the complexity and quantity of modernization, especially in the combat systems arena, has gotten to the point that we really need to talk about it ahead of time to deconflict. Because you can't assume that they'll be able to come in self-contained, do their thing and leave. It's not that way anymore. Everything's interrelated, especially like if it uses canes as the backbone for transmitting digital data, the fiber optic plant. So it's all so much interrelated these days that we're putting together a modernization summit for the CVN 72 upcoming availability. We think we're going to meet sometime in mid-May to June, somewhere in there when Ships Force can be available, because they are an integral player in this. It's not just us outside, the maintainers, coming up with our plan, but working with Ships Force, what fits for them. The project team looking collectively at the MRA, the Modernization Readiness Assessment, and most folks should be familiar with that. We'll have a phone call here next month for the A-7, the MRA-1 phone call, and we'll identify major alterations from that that give you cause for concern or pause or whatever it is. Hey, we'd like to talk to these in more depth and detail. So we'll meet up at around the A-5 to A-3 time frame, project team, including Ships Force, and go over those details. Brian Ambler over on the 77 did something on a small scale of this last August and again in November. They did network validation and network logic, and they figured out where they actually identified potential problems, and were able to deconflict before they got into execution, rather than as you get to execution and you get into the reactive and crisis management mode. We're trying to avoid that, so that folks don't come in. Nothing's worse for Dan or for Tim Marcioni back there, big-time alteration sponsors. Nothing's worse for them than to have their folks sitting waiting on something because somebody else is in the way. the idea is to deconflict that kind of stuff. So we got that big mod summit coming up, and pretty excited about that, actually, to see what comes out of
great.
it. A little trepidation, but it should be a good thing.
Well, make sure you support it if you're in that swim lane. I think that'll be great. All right, Brent.
All right, I'm going to talk about all 4 of my initiatives, so I can talk a little bit
Only
longer.
one.
I want to talk a little bit longer than Bob, though. All right, we'll talk about my number one. My number one thing for this year, I had 4 initiatives, and I'm going to complete all of them by October. You can put that down. Is the Ship's Force Zone Manager Training. We've been working on this probably 20 plus years. It's gotten better. It's still not there. I don't know if I'll fix the problem, but we're going to take that on. So really, I got lucky that Will left me as the maintenance assessment team lead. And I brought on Brian Ray over here, so raise your hand. He'll be doing the maintenance assessment team for us. He was qualified PMP, Project Management Professional, before I got him. And then I did that on my own time and got that also. So I want to take Ship Force Zone Manager Training into a PMP type knowledge base, into the 5 process areas and the 10 knowledge areas. So we did some brainstorming. We're using 3 phases to be given at PRC1, PRC2, and PRC, well, just-in-time training right beforehand. And we're brainstorming on how to do that and the best method of what the Ship's Force Zone Managers actually need. And that'll be a course we provide. Currently, we're using the PMBOK itself. We do have it's a 4-course PowerPoint right now, the Ship's Force Resources KSN owns. We're taking that, but each PowerPoint has about 100 words on it. That's each page. So we're using the knowledge from that, knowledge from PMBOK, and then our own knowledge to create something a little better. I hope to have a product together for the face-to-face, which my face-to-face will be the week of April 20th, here in the Norfolk, well, not here in the Norfolk area, but in the Norfolk area. I'm on the East Coast, so it's all kind of Norfolk to me, but we'll go over that and see if Ship's Force agrees with what we came up with. And that's my number one.
Sounds like a good opportunity. Well, why don't you save it for the up close and personal this afternoon so they want to come and hear a little bit more about what you're doing.
Outstanding.
Yeah. All right, Will, the best for last.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
The PTL KSN's focus will always be to develop project teams that win availabilities and a key factor, want to do it again. Feel supported, have the knowledge and the training they need, and that will be our focus. We used our project team development processes, and they're always being morphed to match the needs that we have as a community to build teams that win availabilities.
Awesome. Captain Markowitz?
Hey, I just want to say one last thing. As I'm up here with the process masters, all our process masters, if you go back to what Admiral Harwood said yesterday, if you want to be smarter than the situation you're in, you want to see who has the gouge. I think you heard it up here. These guys have the gouge. Okay, so hit up your process masters for that inside information there.
I like the tie-in. That's great. Well, and one thing I just want to bring up as well is we're about done with our live sessions. We'll have our last up close and personal. But if anyone has any questions about some of our tools or databases, please don't be shy to ask anyone on our team. The knowledge market, PPR, SharePoint, how hot washes work, what is PCKS, any of those questions. So challenge us, ask us, we'd be happy to help you.
The gouge.
The gouge. I learned what the gouge was. Non-military, lots of military. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate. And cue music.